Hi, Maisie. Are we about there, Maisie?
Yeah.
Streaming now, Chair.
You are? Okay. That's okay. Okay, we'll get started then. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to tonight's Planning Committee meeting. I'd just like to introduce myself. I am Councillor Brian Oldham and I'm the chair of the Planning Committee. There's just a statement I have to make about the recording of virtual Planning Committee meetings. I have to do that as a statutory situation. The statement reads that the public have a right to record this meeting by filming or other means whilst it is open to the public. If members pass a resolution to exclude the public from part of the meeting, then the right to record will not apply to that part of the meeting. For that reason, if a resolution is passed to exclude the public, then for the part of the meeting to which the public do not have access, the live streaming of this meeting will be switched off and resumed if the meeting again becomes open to the public. So that's the statement. Anyway, good evening to that. So, Maisie, would you like to just introduce everybody to the say who's officially attending, who's in attendance to the meeting, please? Officers and members alike, please. Maisie, are you there?
Yes, sorry, Chair. We have councillors Botwood, Lane, Golby, Kilby-Shaw, McCutcheon, Russell, and yourself, Councillor Oldham, the Chair. For officers, we have Nikki Scarsden and Teresa Boyd, as well as myself, Maisie McInnes, and Tracy Tiffin, Democratic Services, present this evening.
You broke up one on there, probably Miss Peter.
And I'm here as well, Chair.
Yeah, I'm sorry, Brian. Yeah.
Sorry, Councillor Markham.
I know you're there, Brian. Thank you.
Yeah, well, I think Maisie.
That's okay. Thank you very much. Apologies, Maisie. Have we got any, please?
We have received apologies from councillors Birch, Carley, and Mary Markham.
Thank you. And on that score, Councillor King has emailed me to say that she will be attending a bit late. She expects to be here at 5:30. Maisie, if we're in the middle of a debate on an application, you'll have to keep her in the waiting room until that's finished. Okay.
Yes, I will do, Chair.
Thank you very much. Members, the minutes of the last meeting, you've all had a copy and the present agenda. Are you happy that those get signed off as a true record, or any comments from them, please? Somebody say they're okay and propose and second. Proposed Councillor Lane, seconded Councillor Botwood. All those in favour that we accept the minutes of true record? Show of hands, please.
Unanimous, Chair.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Deputations and public addresses. Well, we have 12 speakers on tonight's agenda, and I shall call them in order that I've been given them on the list. Item 4, declarations of interest and predetermination. Councillor Botwood, yeah.
Thank you, Chair. I've got a personal and disclosable pecuniary interest in item 12A as a board member of Northampton Partnership Homes. I will therefore leave the meeting for this item.
Thank you very much, Alan. Anyone else got any declarations of interest or predetermination? No?
No one's indicating, Chair.
Appreciate that. Thank you very much. Well, there are no, on item 5, there's no matters of urgency. Item 6, list of current appeals, which appear on page 9. Nikki, I think you're going to cover this now that Rita is now taking retirement. So would you like to go through this report on item 6 for us, please?
Thank you, Chair. So I'll just share my screen. So we've had a couple of appeals of note. So the first one was at 32 Belfry Lane. It was for a 2-storey extension to the front, as you can see here. This was refused under delegated decision due to impact on the character of the area and considered quite a dominating and obtrusive structure within the area. Just show you a couple. So that's the front elevation. It's the extension on the bottom right hand side that you can see there. And then again on the bottom you can see how far it comes out. The inspector noted that there were some other forward projections in the street, but they were generally all set back from the road, and agreed that the extension would significantly result in a prominent and intrusive alien feature, and also noted this massive solid brickwork that would be quite prominent in the street. So that appeal was dismissed. Another appeal, this was for 4 Reaping Close, and this related to replacing a boundary hedge with a brick wall and piers around the boundary. This is the property here. Apologies, can you see? I'll just see if I can see my pointer. So this property had previously had a hedgerow along the boundary, and it was proposed to replace that with a 2.1 metre high wall with 2.5 metre pillars. It's worth noting it's a fairly kind of open plan estate generally, so this hedgerow here is quite an unusual feature in the street scene. There were previous applications, similar applications refused, where the boundary wall was proposed abutting right up to the footway, and that went to appeal and was dismissed at appeal. This one does set the boundary wall back. However, officer opinion was that it was still quite a dominant and uncharacteristic feature in the street scene. The inspector did, however, disagree in this instance. He did note that the generally open character of the area, but felt that in this instance, because they had endeavoured to set the wall back, and that he could impose a condition for some landscaping to kind of soften the impact of this wall, inspector allowed that appeal. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Nikki. Committee, are there any comments to ask Nikki of these items on agenda item 6? No? No one indicating? Okay, right. Thank you, Nikki. Right, we have got no items on the agenda under items 7, 8 or 9. So we'll go straight into item 10, item 10A, which is on page 11 of your agenda, committee, which is a single-storey rear extension and new front porch, retrospective, at 42 Gloucester Crescent. Nikki, I believe this is your report. Would you like to present it, please?
Thank you, Chair. So there's no addendum for this application. This is the application site here. It's one of a pair of semis on quite a prominent corner within the street. Just an aerial view there. So there's quite a strong pattern of pairs of semis slightly set back from the road within the local area. This is property here. It's a side view. So this is before there's been a 2-storey extension permitted and added since. So this shows a view before the extension was added. And then this is just a view from the front. It's property on the left-hand side there. So quite a simple form of properties and character within the area. So this shows the property from the front as currently altered. To the left-hand side is the 2-storey extension that was permitted under delegated powers in 2017. There were no objections received in relation to that. The as-built form does, however, deviate from the approved plans. They've had the insertion of these French doors and the Juliet balcony to the top, and there's a slight difference also in the ground floor window there. There's also the addition of this Juliet balcony and French doors to the existing house to the side. In respect of that Juliet balcony, that can actually be added as permitted development, so that can be added without needing planning permission. The applicant has been advised to submit a further application to rectify the differences in the approved scheme in relation to that two-storey extension, but that element doesn't form part of the application under consideration tonight. So this is the porch, which does form part of the application. It extends 1.75 metres from the front elevation. It is quite large in comparison. Most porches are generally small within the surrounding areas, storm porches such as that next door. However, officer opinion is it does sit fairly well in the context of the scale of the property as extended. The porch would be rendered. There is a condition proposed to render the porch as well, so it would be in keeping with the existing house and context. It's set in from the neighbouring boundary, so there'd be no adverse impact on neighbouring windows to the front of that adjacent property. That's just view from the side. Comments have been received about the porch breaking the building line. Whilst there is quite a definite building line in the area, you could actually construct a porch of 3 square metres floor area, so slightly quite small, a lot smaller than you see there, but you could still construct a porch that would interrupt that building line without the need for planning permission. This is the rear extension. So again, this is part of tonight's application for consideration. The application does propose it's constructed in brick, but the intention is that this would also be rendered to match the existing house. So the extension's 3.1 metres deep out from the existing rear elevation of the property and 3.7 metres high. This shows it in relation to number 40, the adjacent property. They have got a French door. You can't see it from this photo, but there are French doors adjacent to the boundary with this extension on that neighbouring property. So the extension would have some impact on the outlook and light to those windows. However, the actual footprint of the extension is 3 metres. It's the overhang that takes it to 3.1. So the applicant could actually build an extension of a similar size without the need for planning permission. This is only marginally over what they could build in terms of footprint, overall footprint, to what they could build without the need for planning permission, and that would have the same impact on the neighbouring property. This is looking towards number 44, Gloucester Crescent. As you can see, there's quite a difference in land levels between the properties and blank side elevation, so the extension doesn't have any adverse impact on that neighbouring property. So just to quickly go through the plans. So this was the plans before the 2-storey extension with a sort of storeroom on the back there. So this is the proposed plans. The bits highlighted are what we're actually considering tonight. So the 1-storey rear extension and the porch to the front. Again, that's the porch to the front. This is the side elevation with the porch and the 1-storey rear extension. There is actually a window that's been inserted in that 2-storey element there. There was a condition on the permission for the 2-storey extension prohibiting the addition of any additional windows. So again, the applicant's been advised that will require a separate planning application. And again, this is just a plan of the rear elevation. So although the application is in retrospect, planning legislation does allow for the consideration of retrospective planning applications. And those applications should be considered on their merits in accordance with policy requirements. Concerns have been raised regarding maintenance of boundary treatments. That's a civil matter between the parties involved. There's also some comments regarding storage of scaffolding in the rear garden We've been advised that scaffolding relates to the construction that's ongoing, and that will be removed from the garden on completion of the development. Also concerns regarding the use of the internal rooms. The plans show intended use as a bar and a games room. That's considered appropriate for a domestic dwelling. It's up to the owners as to how they use their property in that domestic respect. Any unacceptable impacts in respect of excessive noise or antisocial disturbance would be a matter to be dealt with under environmental health legislation in any event. So on balance, officer opinion is the design and appearance are considered acceptable and would not lead to any unacceptable impact on the neighbours. Therefore, the application is recommended for approval. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Nikki. Right, we have 4 speakers on this application. I'll call them as they've got them listed. I'll call upon Mr. Michael Hambridge, please. Mr. Hambridge, are you with us? Mr. Hambridge, I can see you.
Yes, yeah.
Yes, if you just identify yourself, Mr. Hambridge. Good evening.
I'm Michael Hambridge. I live next door to the applicant.
Okay. You have 3 minutes. Thank you very much.
Well, we've read the planning applications appraisal, oddly favouring the approval despite several breaches, and the main irregularities follows. The 45-degree sunlight daylight rule breach has been skirted because the circumstances that certainly don't apply here, a 4-metre high extension meets permitted development only if approval wasn't needed. But because the rear extension adjoins the side extension, permission is required and is thus bound by the 45-degree sunlight daylight permitted development is therefore mute. There is also an alarming piece of misdirection in the point 7.7 of the appraisal. They ignore all the important height rising 6 feet above our full height fence and dismiss the rule breach by only referring to the depth, which is completely irrelevant. In the application, they have ticketed that new or altered vehicle access is proposed, requiring they show this on the plans, but they have not done so. The front side is clearly being set aside for parking, adding to the shrinking plot and the overdevelopment. Once again, the planning department have been perverse, stating that no additional parking is needed, presumably to prevent relevant claims over overdevelopment. They mention separate plots in this application, having bisected the land to include a huge roofed area for storage of scaffolding. Again, not shown on the plans. This storage area has been fenced off with permanent concrete and wood fencing. It isn't temporary and reduces the size of the plot massively, leaving just a slim strip of garden. When combined with extensions and whatever parking they devise, overdevelopment has occurred. He is a scaffolder by trade, and the scaffolding isn't limited to his project. The rear extension overhanging and trapping our removable fence panels might be a civil matter because it has already occurred, but planning permission would not have approved an extension sited where it would trap an existing fence, causing a land grab and unavoidable damage. Retrospective planning should apply the same standards. The suggested conditions at 9.3 state that both extensions be rendered. This is not possible on the side that traps our fence. So we are left with a breeze block eyesore, not a brick as claimed in the application. This leaves them with a potential source of leaks. It will be interesting to see how this is enforced and if any timescale is imposed. They lied to gain access to our land, mocking up a flat roof, not the pitch roof that dwarfs our full height fence. Had plans been submitted before construction, we never would have allowed access. You should take this crucial deceit into consideration.
Time, Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Hambridge. Thank you very much. Committee, do you have any questions to ask of Mr. Hambridge, please? No?
Nobody's indicating, Chair.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Hambridge. Thank you. And I'll call upon Miss Cheryl Holdsworth, please.
Hello.
Cheryl? Cheryl?
Yeah. Gerald's taken her husband to hospital.
Oh, right. Okay. So she's not been able to speak.
No,
Okay.
she's actually taken her husband to hospital.
Yeah. All right, Mr. Hambridge.
I'm
Thank you
sorry
very
about
much.
that.
That's okay. I'm sorry. I hope everything turns out right for her. I'll then call upon Councillor Davenport then. Councillor Julie Davenport, please.
Sorry, Chair.
Yes, Peter.
Just clarify that that speaker is not attending the meeting at all this evening.
Well, according to Miss, well, okay, Mr. Ambridge, she's not at all here. She's gone to hospital with her husband. Is that right?
Yeah. Yes.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you very much for that. Thanks for clarifying that. Sorry, Julie. If you just, good evening, Julie. If you just introduce yourself and in what capacity you speak, please.
Okay, Councillor Julie Davenport, Councillor for Delapre and Briar Hill. And I would like to state firstly that until I got to know about this, I've never spoken to either the applicant or the neighbour.
That's okay, Julie. You've got 3 minutes. And before you start, Julie, don't let time the clock. All speakers, you all have 3 minutes. No more, no less. Your maximum of 3 minutes. Sorry, Julie, carry on, please. Thank you.
This is a sad story. Next door, semi-detached neighbours and friends. Now, the applicant wanted an extension, consults with the neighbour, they mutually accept plans for a flat roof. Now, the applicant changed that to a much higher pitched roof, taking away the light from Mr. Hambridge's very small garden area. Now, there is a right to light under the Prescription Act 1832, and you can ask me about that. Now, in my garden, it wouldn't have mattered so much. It's a big garden, wouldn't lose the light. But if you see it on the map with Mr. Hambridge's garden, he's got both of them coming at him like this, and it really has made a difference. So in addition, the applicant's right on the boundary with Mr. Hambridge, and it's not in brick, it's in breeze block. So if you agree to this application, you are giving the application the right by law to go through Mr. Hambridge's property to render his boundary wall, which it will need doing to weatherproof it, and to maintain it ongoing, which is covered by the Access to Neighbouring Land Act 1992. No one has visited Mr. Hambridge to see the impact, and he has contacted planning numerous occasions. And in the end, he just felt like a nuisance. Porch, now that wasn't there. That's a bit of a mystery. I walked my dog along there, and one day it wasn't there. The afternoon, I get a retrospective planning permission for a porch. And I thought, there's no porch there. I walked by the next day and they've started to build it. So then it sort of makes people think, well, you can build what you like, because all you got to do then is put retrospective in and it'll be passed. Because I've never known the planning committee to ever refuse retrospective planning. You can prove me wrong with the date, but from what I can see. And this application, I don't know why, but it keeps being put back. So it's been 6 months. Like, oh, next month. And we've had to nag and nag to try and get this in. I hope it's not one of those things where it has to be
30 seconds remaining.
It has to be decided tonight, therefore putting the committee into a position where they have to accept it because time's run out. And I do hope, if the press is watching this, that they get involved, because it will warn others about what can happen in situations like this. They should be protected by the law. And all it needed was something different, what was agreed in the first place.
3 minutes, Chair.
Thank you. Sorry, Julie, I've got to call it to halt there. Thank you. Committee, have you got any questions to ask of Councillor Davenport, please? Anyone? Councillor Lane, Jamie, yeah.
Thank you. Just on the point, really, that planning committee has never acted on reacted to what I'm trying to say. We have reviewed past. Yeah, we have reviewed retrospective planning applications in the past, and my ask to Councillor Davenport is if she goes back into the minutes of the planning committee meeting over the last 10 years, she will find them. I think it was Ano Crescent or Ano Walk, something like that, in Sunnyside Ward. Off the top of my head, that was one of them.
Okay, thank you. Right, okay. Thanks for that, Jamie, Councillor Lane. Anyone else got any questions to ask of Councillor Davenport?
Nobody's
No?
indicating, Chair.
Thank you. Thank you, Julie. Thank you for that. I now call upon Mr. Kane Paley, please. Mr. Paley, I can see you. Good evening. You need to unmute yourself. You need to unmute yourself. Right.
Is that better?
Yeah, I can hear you. If you'd like to introduce yourself and in what capacity you speak, Mr. Paley, please.
Yeah, my name's Kane Paley and I'm the builder and project manager of the whole thing in question.
Okay, you have 3 minutes. Thank you.
Okay, yeah. Well, the original start of the extension at the back was to come out 3 meters and no more than 4 meters high, and the back of the house. But what I've done everything by planning, by everything by the rules, and just gone ahead with the build. But what I didn't find out, and it was as the extensions come at the back, where an extension meets an extension that's not original part of the property does require planning, so therefore put the whole back of the extension in jeopardy, if you like. And then but I had been told that a slight section of it will need planning approval. So as far as I was aware, that the bit I was building was no more than 4 meters high and no more than 3 meters out, therefore was didn't require planning, which it doesn't. It's been checked. As to the pitch roof, we did agree on a flat roof, but I didn't think I could get a pitch roof under the window height at the 2.1 meter above the door. Turns out that they do sell steel lintels that could manage to get the pitch roof, which I'm perfectly within my means to do that. Whether we agreed or not, I'm still within the meter, within the boundaries. But as to the wall as well, we agreed. I offered they can have it in red brick, which it didn't work. I must admit, the red brick, because all the other houses had low level in red brick and the house was render. I sort of went with the same theme, but it turned out it just didn't work. So we're just going to render it. But I did actually offer them, do you want red brick, or would you like render, or anything really? It costs not, it's not an issue. I'll give you whatever you want, is to say thank you. But then as the build went along, they put the fence straight up. There was no issue with what was there. And I did mention that it will be rendered, which will start in January, the rendering, by the way. That's if they allow me to do it, but it's there on the table if they want it doing or not, because it's breeze block for a purpose to be rendered. But yeah, and as for the scaffold in the garden, I built a compound basically to keep the one thing that I actually put in place.
30 seconds remaining.
As an eyesore, it's actually backfired and said it's there for an unknown reason, but it's there, a temporary compound. It will be took down at the end, and that's it really. That's the only thing that actually affects them. The porch doesn't affect in any way, shape or form, so I'm not sure that should even be there for discussion really. It doesn't affect anyone. Thank you.
Right, thank you, Mr. Paley. Right, just hang on there, Mr. Paley, in case the committee's got any questions to ask of you.
Okay.
Committee, do you have any questions to ask of Mr. Paley, please? Councillor Russell, Catherine, yeah.
Thank you. Mr. Paley, it's clear that you enjoy developing your property and making your property look good and comfortable, and there's nothing wrong with that. However, there's 2 areas here that I'm not very clear about. One is that you went ahead and built an extension and now have to apply for retrospective planning, which is not really the usual way people go about doing their business. They usually ensure that they've got planning, or make sure whether or not they need planning approval, and if they do, apply for it. The other thing that I was a bit concerned about was the fact that you put a window on the side of your property when in fact planning had said quite clearly previously that there shouldn't be one. Would you like to comment on that, please?
Well, yeah, I mean, the original plans on the side of the house are done by Jerry Gardner, and it sadly passed away. So I wasn't really very sure on what I wasn't and what were allowed. But what it is, because we've gone into the attic as well, it didn't specify whether you could go to that the side bit. But the actual reason for that was to create light into the attic area. It was, but also there was windows on the side of the elevation in the original house, and the same at every property as well. So it was yeah, there were 2 windows on the original property at the side of the house. So I thought when you got it to the top, it didn't specify the attic. It said the because it wasn't actually a room. But I mean that's not an issue. I mean that can be taken out, or you know, I've left it rendered. I haven't rendered anything yet, just in case this did occur. You know, like that I might have to change it. I accept that. That's not a problem. But yeah, it's I didn't. It was only the back extension that I wasn't clear about, because we did it during the corona, so I done everything by video, you know, and you know, like the footings and the depths and whatnot. But I done everything legally. It was just that I didn't do enough research on that slight bit. So where the new extension met the old extension, that area just required planning, which put the whole thing in jeopardy. But I'd say a good 75% of that would have been permitted build if that extension wasn't there, for instance. But it was just that's put everything, you know, in question. So and I do apologise, but it neither there. It's that bit on the end. It's completely away. Like I said, it's nearer to 44, which has no impact. So that shouldn't, you know, be it. That shouldn't really have to put the jeopardy on that side, which, like I said, that there's nothing wrong with that. Everything's legal. It's, you know, the only thing that was, you know, not clear was that the red brick. It just didn't work. It didn't. It was too red. It didn't look fitting. So we just decided to render the whole lot now, which come at a loss, as you can imagine, with the brickwork. But it's just what has to be done, really, just to, you know, to make it work.
All right, Mr. Paley. Thank you very much.
Cheers. Thank you.
Anybody else got any questions to ask of Mr. Paley, please? Councillor Markham, Brian.
Yeah.
You've got
yes. Mr. Bailey. Just to get myself straight, because Councillor Russell was referring to you as the house owner. Am I right? You're the builder. Is that you? It's not your property.
It's my mum. It's actually my mum's property, but it's
all right.
It's just like a future, you know, like to secure a future, basically. A nice house. I've got the means to do it. I'm a scaffolder by trade. I've got, you know, I've done it. I've done it out of pure will and, you know, determination.
Yeah, which brings me to the second point, because
okay.
Sorry, it was referred to that you're a scaffold. Well, the house owner. That's why I couldn't understand that you're scaffolder and builder, obviously. So, but you're not currently living at that property and running the scaffolding business from there, or are you not?
That's right. I've took it, basically. We've gone into a pact that, you know, I'm going to stay there until it's done, just securely, you know, get it looking really nice. What I enjoy doing. But be the project manager, and it's really near to the end now. It's just literally the render's starting in January, and I'm out of there, and then just basically give my mum a really nice home, and it's there for the future, and that was the sort of plan.
All right. Thank you very much. Right.
Anyone else got any questions to ask Mr. Paley?
Councillor McCutcheon's indicating, Chair.
Okay. Councillor McCutcheon, Arthur, yeah. Have you unmuted, Arthur? Arthur, you need to unmute yourself, mate. You need to unmute yourself.
What now? Yes,
Can hear you now.
The business of the storage of the scaffolding, we have an absolute contradiction here between the two. The owner is saying that it was temporary, and the other gentleman was saying that no, it's not temporary, it's going to be part of the ongoing business. Now, scaffolders do not have necessarily to live where they keep their scaffolding, and the assurance that he isn't resident there at the moment is not really a thoroughgoing assurance that there will be no scaffolding there. Thank you, Chairman.
Mr. Paley, would you like to answer that?
Yeah, it's not just for scaffolding. They've failed to mention it's general building materials. It's a bit of everything in there. But because of the shape of the garden, it was sort of like a baseball pitch sort of shape. So I decided to corner the corner off, basically, and he said it's permanent fence. It's not. I had spare fence in there, so I've done it. I painted it all nice, but the shed he's referring to is made of scaffolding to hide the scaffolding, so it's not an eyesore. And which I think I've done a really good job, if I'm honest. And I've tried just hiding general building materials while the work's going on, and just keeping it like tidy. But to say that it's a permanent scaffold, I can't. It's crazy to think I've got a scaffolding yard in the middle of a house in the state. It's totally not true. Well, that's my answer.
All right, thank you, Mr. Paley. Anyone else got any questions? No? All right, thank you, Mr. Paley.
Okay, thank you.
Nikki, do you want to come back on anything that you've heard before I open the questions to you from the committee, please?
Yes, thank you, Chair. If I just clarify, so just to clarify what does and doesn't need planning permission, the extension is to the back here. So this games room you can see here, this is the bit nearest to the neighbouring boundary. This line here is the line of the original house. So ignoring the section on the left hand side, they could build effectively this games room section here as permitted development. It's the fact that the extension extends further across, extending outside the side of the original house. So this bit here where it said bar, that's the bit that causes this to need planning permission. So in terms of impact on neighbour, what we're actually saying is they could construct this games room element as permitted development, having the same impact as this extension does now. So that's just to clarify that point. In terms of the situation and the scaffolding and storage of building materials, that will be monitored ongoing by our enforcement team. Obviously, it's only reasonable to expect building materials to be on site, and we'll continue to monitor to that situation. In respect to parking provision, this proposal doesn't actually introduce any bedrooms. It would only be the introduction of bedrooms that would cause us to have another look at parking. So that matter was reviewed and dealt with as part of the consideration of the proposal for the two-storey extension, which did introduce an additional bedroom. Parking in the area is on street. There's and it was considered that the sign that there was no need for any additional parking requirement, but that's not a consideration of the current application. In respect of the rendering of the side elevation, there is a condition that the extension, both extensions, the rear and the front, are rendered to match the existing house. That doesn't necessarily give the right for the applicant to go onto private land. So that is a matter that would still need to be resolved. As I say, at the moment, we've got that requirement as a condition, and we would reasonably expect that to be the development to be completed in accordance with that. So that is an ongoing issue. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Nikki. Right, committee, any questions to ask of Nikki, please? I can see Councillor Botwood, Councillor Russell, Councillor Markham. Councillor Botwood, Alan first.
Thank you, Chair. Nikki, just a couple of points. Looking at it and the experience we've had, I can see that there's very little that we can object to on the actual buildings. The two things that do concern me, Councillor Russell's already mentioned the window. Is it proposed that the council ask for that window to be removed? That's the first question. And the second one, looking at the porch, I appreciate what you said about you could permit a 3 square metre porch without planning. This is nearly 3 times the size of that at 8.75 square metres. So is it proposed that that should need planning, doesn't need planning, or it is okay to build it in front of the building line? Thank you. Thank you, Alan. Nikki?
Okay, so in terms of the window, the applicant has been advised that that would need planning permission. That side elevation, actually, I don't know whether you can remember the photos where I showed the neighbouring property. It's essentially got a blank side elevation that's set at a much higher level. So the likelihood is that probably wouldn't have any unacceptable neighbour impact. However, they would need to submit a planning application for us to assess that. Alternative, if we felt there was unacceptable harm, the options are to either obscure glaze it or remove the window completely, but that would be the subject of consideration under a separate planning application. In respect to the porch, yeah, it is considerably bigger than a PD porch, and porches within the area. Officer opinion in respect of this, the porch, by the way, is part of this planning application, so that is an element we're considering under the proposal tonight. It's the porch and the rear extension, just for clarification. So the porch does need planning permission. Officer opinion is that in view of the overall scale of the property as now extended, the appearance isn't unacceptable, and that's why the proposal was recommended for approval.
Thanks for that, Nikki.
Okay.
Thank you. Councillor Russell, Catherine? Yeah.
Thank you.
Question to Nikki? Yeah.
Nikki, is it possible to make it a condition that the applicant clears the rear garden after completion of the works? Personally, I think possibly that the applicant doesn't have a great eye for detail. Thank you.
Nikki?
We wouldn't normally condition it. There are enforcement regulations in respect of untidy sites, and as I say, it would be unreasonable to enforce it now whilst construction works are ongoing, although if it was an unreasonably untidy site and impacting on adjacent amenity, we would have to review it. So whilst works ongoing, it's accepted that there's going to be this element of disruption. Once the work's complete, then we would expect the site to revert back to its use as a garden and be tidied. So, as I say, there are enforcement controls in respect of untidy sites, so that's how we would pursue it if necessary. Thank you, Chair.
Councillor Markham, Brian? Thank you, Nikki.
Yes, thank you, Nikki. Most of the points I was going to ask have been asked already, but that going back to what actually needs planning consent, am I right in thinking that the porch that is halfway built, halfway finished, needs planning consent? That actually the part of the rear extension that needs planning consent is the bit furthest away from the house that's most affected, if you like, and if Nikki's saying, well, they could have built the games room without planning consent, but because if you like, the previous application, which is nearly built, is being enlarged, that's why it needs planning consent. If the building, this 2-story extension, was completed, how long before they could put another extension on across the whole back of it anyway? I wondered, without any planning consent at all.
Nikki?
Right. In terms of the rear extension, the the rear extension in its entirety needs consent. What the point I was trying to make is they could build a smaller extension without the need for planning permission. But because of the nature of this extension and the way it extends past the side of the original house, the extension in its entirety needs consent, as does the porch, because that's over permitted development size allowance. So it's both those elements that need consent. In terms of what they could now build, and now you're testing my permitted development memory, it's a semi-detached, so I think they could possibly extend further out the back, but they would have to go under as a minimum what we call the prior notification process. So there would always be some sort of application from now on that they'd need to submit to us, be that a planning application or a prior notification for a larger house extension. But I suspect any further development would fall under the planning application remit. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Has anyone else got any questions to ask of Nikki?
And very quickly, if this planning application for the extension came, for the whole rear extension, would we normally be saying that that extension could go right up to the boundary of next door, and because that's where it goes, especially as it's rendered? Would we normally say, well, it has to be in a metre or something? I'm just wondering.
Nikki?
Yeah. So, I mean, what we always take into account is what they could build without planning permission. So, again, they could build right up to the boundary without the need for planning permission and have this same issue. So it'd be difficult for us to raise an objection on that basis, albeit the extension in its entirety needs planning permission. We have to kind of have a look at the fallback scenario, if you like. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Nikki. Thank you. Anyone else got? Sorry.
Yeah, Chair, Peter here. If I could just clarify, yes, they would have to be in their own land. If they actually went onto the boundary, it would be subject to the Party Wall Act, which would be another set of controls and would require agreement between the two parties.
Right, thank you for that. Right, there's no one else got any questions to ask of Nikki? Okay, if there isn't, then it falls upon me to ask for any comments, committee. We're into comments now. Committee, any comments on what you heard, please?
Nobody's indicating, Chair.
Okay, right, thank you for that. Falls upon me then, the officer's recommendation is to approve this as subject to the conditions as set out below on your agenda. So do I have a proposal that we accept the officer's recommendation to approve this application, please? I've got Councillor Kilbershaw proposing. Yeah, thank you. A seconder? Councillor Botwood, thank you very much. Thank you, Alan. All those in favour that we accept the officer's recommendation to approve this application, please?
Six hands in the air, Chair.
Thank you. Those against?
2, Chair.
2 against. 6, 4, 2 against. Any abstentions?
No, Chair.
6, 4, 2 against. So in that basis, the application is approved. Okay. Thank you very much for that, committee. We now go on to item 10B, which is on page 19. The location is 2 Mercers Row. You've all got your planning agenda and the description of it. And I believe, Anna, this is your report. Would you like to present it, please?
Thank you, Chair. So the application is for the conversion of the existing building into a takeaway and a HIMO for 4 occupants. This is the application site at 2 Mercers Row in the town centre, so opposite All Saints Church. And the drapery is located here in the market square. It's just an aerial view to assist. So this is the application site as existing. may recognise it. The building has been vacant for quite some time now, and it is this section of the building up to here. Just some internal views so you can see the current state. So this is the internal floors, the upper floors, and some views out of the window. So this is looking towards the church and then looking down the alleyway that leads up to the market square. So as existing, the unit was last used as an estate agents with associated office space. So there's a basement, a ground floor, and then there's 3 further floors above. And this is the existing elevations. So the application proposes to convert the building. At ground floor, a takeaway would be provided in this space, and this would lead down here to stairs which go to a basement, kitchen and cold room. And the other part of the proposal is for a HMO. So entrance would be an existing door on Drum Lane. There would be a staircase down to a cycle storage area, and a bin store would be provided at ground floor level. You would then go upstairs, and at first floor there would be a shared kitchen and living room with a toilet. At second floor there'd be 2 bedrooms and a bathroom, and at third floor there'd be another 2 bedrooms and another bathroom. The application also includes the erection of a flue, which is set back on the building. So this is this flue here. You'd be unlikely to be able to see it from outside the site due to its position. That is the only change to the appearance of the building. So the application site, as I said, it's for part of it is for a HMO. This map shows the 50-metre radius for this site. The HIMO SPD does outline a recommended limit of 10% of properties within this circle should be HMOs. So you can see there's 1 existing, which is what this star indicates. Now the application does amount to 11.1%, which is above the 10%. However, the reason for the limit of 10% is actually to protect residential areas from losing a large number of houses towards HIMOs. This application site is located in the town centre, where it is appropriate for HIMOs to be located. The building is also not a house at the moment, it is an empty vacant unit, and it has been vacant for quite some time. And so you're not losing a house, but you are reusing a building that is vacant. It's also the case that because of the location in the town centre, the vast majority of these buildings are not in residential use. When we calculate the percentage, we can only count the houses in residential use against the number of HIMOs. So when there are a lot of buildings that are not used for residential use, this will skew the results to be a higher percentage because we cannot count each building. If we counted each building within this circle, the percentage would actually be 3.92%. So it's only because there's only 18 residential properties in existence in this circle at the moment that the figure is so high. It's also the case that, again, as I said, it's vacant, so it's bringing back a building into use. It's the town centre where HIMO uses are appropriate. It's a good location for the train and bus routes and obviously facilities. As such, whilst it does fall over the 10% due to the way we calculate this, due to its location in the town centre, the bringing back of the unit into use, and the fact that the figure is skewed by the buildings not being in residential use, we cannot count any buildings that have permission to be converted into flats if those flats do not yet exist. That is why at this moment it is over, but it's likely that very soon it would be under 10%. In line with this, and the fact there's been no objections from private sector housing, public protection, conservation or highways to the scheme, it is recommended that the scheme be approved. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Hannah. Well, committee, we have 2 speakers on this. I'll call the first speaker as listed, Councillor Danielle Stone. Councillor Stone, please.
Thank you very much, Chair. My objections are very obvious, I think. I don't at all approve of HIMOs being put above takeaways. I think it's a practice we ought to look very unfavourably on because of the nuisance often caused by smells, by traffic, by, I mean, you know, people coming in and out of the shop, that kind of traffic. I don't think it is at all suitable to have dwellings above takeaways, to be perfectly honest with you, let alone the smells and the waste and the refuse and all of that, which can be a real nuisance for residents. But my other concern is, and I've expressed it before, is in these COVID times, we should be being a lot more stringent about our expectations within high modes. I find it really objectionable that people are having to share bathrooms, and I think we should be really working with developers to make sure that high modes have got en suites to mitigate against the difficulties created by COVID. So that's my second reason. I think in terms of what we want for the town centre, this doesn't sit well with our vision of how we want our town centre to be. So that is my third objection. We want a town centre that is vibrant, that's open for business, that's available for everybody. We want to see fewer takeaways. We've got an overabundance of takeaways in the town centre, particularly in that area. And we want to see a pull factor to bring people into the town. This is not it. This is not a pull factor. This is a prime town centre site. I am sorry that the borough didn't seem fit to buy the building themselves and to develop it themselves, but I think we need to be a lot more ambitious for our town. I've got 3 objections, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Stone. Thank you very much. Anybody got any questions to ask of Councillor Stone committee, please?
Councillor Markham's indicating.
Yeah, Councillor Markham. Brian, yeah. Brian, are you with me? Where are you?
I suddenly lost my picture, Chair. Yeah, if I could ask, I understand. Question for Councillor Stone. I understand. Yes, she would maybe like something else there, but when you say, Councillor Stone, you object to the idea of living accommodation above a takeaway, are you saying, well, if it was a coffee shop or indeed a restaurant, that, you know, you're against those as well in the town centre? I'm not sure what the point about the takeaway is in particular.
Thank you, Councillor Stone. Councillor Stone, you hear that?
Sorry, I would judge. Sorry, Chair. I would judge everything by the merits of the proposed development, to be honest with you. But my view is that takeaways, in particular, generate a huge amount of customer traffic, but also a huge amount of waste, and can be very smelly, you know, depending on where the siting of the flues are, etc. If you walk around the town centre, you could see really clearly the impact that takeaways have on the local environment and on the residences above them, and it's not good. And what I'm saying is, this is a prime, wonderful town centre site. We should be guarding these sites jealously and be very ambitious for them. And we need that pull factor to, you know, what is going to be the pull? Mercer Road's beautiful, right near All Saints. You know, we need to be looking at it in terms of how can we make it more upmarket? How can we introduce that bit of magic, that pull factor that's going to bring people into the town centre? This kind of development is expedient for the Borough Council, and I understand that, but it is not right.
Well, thank you. Anyone else got any questions to ask of Councillor Stone, please? Committee.
Nobody's indicating, Chair.
Thank you for that. Thank you, Councillor Stone. Thank you very much. Right, I now call upon Mr. I hope I've got the pronunciations right here. Mr. Ali A, is it? Ali A? Hope I've got the pronunciation right. I can see you, Mr. A. Is that right? You need to unmute yourself. You need to unmute yourself, Mr. A. We can't hear you, Mr. A. You need to unmute yourself. Still can't hear you, Mr. A. Can you unmute yourself? Ali, do you know how to unmute yourself?
Yeah, I heard you. I heard you.
Okay, we can hear you now.
Is all right?
Yeah, if you'd like to introduce yourself and in what capacity you speak, please.
Yeah, it will be short, just a few minutes. Yeah. The first, I have the respect to the planning officer, the report and the letter. I have the respect for the recommendation approval. And this building long time ago is empty, and the roof is very bad now. Water leaking is necessary repairing, and the area in the shopping center, everybody know. For the restaurant and for cafe, we look at is too small, and there are in the high cities a lot of cafe and the Nando's restaurant. For my client is decided for takeaway, and the upper floor is just the internal some alteration. Is 4-room. The HMO you see, and the first floor is for the HMO, for the resident people is a large, good quality condition, is one kitchen, living room together. I have respect, is the councillor lady, she has some objection, but objection is not true. And for example, the flue, we used to from the inside, because conservation area, and all around the neighbors, the building is a listed building. Exactly, we do it on the inside. And anyway, just is, yeah, I looking for the committee decision. Building is long time ago is empty. For the office, that is too difficult. For the shopping shop, retail shop is too difficult. You know, right, that this pandemic time is just takeaway is open, you know. And this site is to midnight, until midnight is busy because my bus stop and my other restaurant is busy. I have respect to your decision. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. A. Committee, have you got any questions to ask of Mr. A, please? Anyone?
Nobody's indicating, Chair.
Thank you, Tracy. Thank you very much for that. Right. Anna, before I open the questions to yourself from the committee, is there anything you want to come back on what you've heard?
And just a couple of points, please, Chair. So firstly, the concern about takeaways being below residential properties and HIMOs. There are a number of conditions proposed on this application as requested by Public Protection, who have no objection to the scheme. It's considered these conditions would mitigate any harm from a takeaway. So these control odour, refuse, etc. With regard to COVID, it's not a material planning consideration, so it's not something we can assess. The proposal does fully comply with the requirements for a HIMO with regard to facilities, bathrooms, kitchen, etc., and the size of rooms. And finally, with the appropriativeness of the use, a takeaway is a town centre use and is what we would want in the town centre, especially at ground floor where you've got an active use at the ground floor still. With regards to the HIMO, one of our key aims is to bring people into the area and living in the town centre. So this would again also assist in bringing people to the town centre to use the town centre. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Anna. Thank you very much. All right, committee, any questions to ask of Anna, please? Councillor Lane, Jamie, yeah.
Thank you, Hannah. I really enjoyed the presentation. I really liked the circle showing the radius now and the highlighting where the other HIMOs are. So I really hope we can have that on every application now because it's really useful to know that. Thank you.
Thank you, Jamie. Councillor McCutcheon, Arthur, yeah. You need to unmute yourself, Arthur. Arthur, can't hear you. Still can't hear you. Need to unmute yourself.
I do.
Yeah, I can hear you now, Arthur. Thank you.
As I said, the conditions are very comprehensive, a large number of them. And the last remaining thing that I've got problems with or curiosity about is the internal layout. I wonder if Hannah could take us again through the floor plans, particularly for the residential area, please.
Sorry, thank you. Yes, of course. If I start at the ground floor, for the residential use, so you come off Drum Lane, and you've got your entrance hall with your bin storage in a separate room, and you can go downstairs to a cycle storage area.
Mm-hmm.
You would then go upstairs above the takeaway, and the first floor, which is the floor above the takeaway, would be a shared living and kitchen room, which exceeds the size limits we look for. And you also have a toilet and wash basin on that floor. You then go up to the second floor where you have two bedrooms and a bathroom. And then on the third floor, again, you have 2 bedrooms and a bathroom. So there'd be one person in each of the bedrooms. And then you've got 2 bathrooms and also an extra toilet facility.
Thank you, Chairman. Can I just clarify there that the bathrooms and toilets are sort of like tied to each floor, that each 2 bedrooms, as it were, has access to that level, and that they're not accessible to each other? Well, they will be accessible, but that they're not indicated they should be used by others.
Yep, so the floor plans, I mean, there's a central staircase, so everyone would be able to access every bathroom. Logically, you would think that this floor would use this one and this floor would use this one. And because everyone on this floor who's using the communal space can share the toilet facility on that floor. But yeah, there's 2 bathrooms and 4 bedrooms, so on each bathroom on each floor.
Thank you.
Okay, right, thank you, Arthur. Councillor Markham, Brian, yeah. I've got you, Catherine.
Yeah, I'm unmuted now. I think.
No, you're all right.
I asked Councillor Stone mentioned about what we would like to see in an area, and I would agree. Mercer's Row, in particular, is a prime site, if you like, interesting types of buildings and history. My recollection is that such Mercer's Row, George's Row, and so on, the prime town centre locations, but also not just town centre locations. They were singled out, and there should be, or there used to be, a desire that only so many takeaways, so many cafes, and so on in such a location. I just wonder, is that the case now? And if it is, are we not only near the high mode limit, are we near the takeaway limit, if you understand what I said?
Through you, Chair, yes, thank you. So under the original local plan, because of the shopping frontages, there was a planning policy on limiting the number of shops you lose in these areas. However, that was superseded by the National Planning Policy Framework, so that we can no longer limit the number of shops that are lost. So the takeaway use is in compliance with current policies, but I think what you're remembering is what used to exist under the local plan before the NPPF.
I'm very old, Anna. That's probably why I remember things. Yes.
Sorry.
Well, thank you. Thank you for that. Catherine, Councillor Russell. Catherine, you wanted to ask a question?
Yes, I do. Thank you. Hannah, the bin store appears to be to the left of the entrance for people wanting to go upstairs to their bedroom or to their accommodation. personally, I couldn't think of anything worse than walking into a hall and the bin store is right there. And also, I don't know who we're looking to attract to this type of HIMO, but to schlep a bike up and down those stairs, I don't think is realistic. Is there some way we can change the way things are there?
Through you, Chair. Let me just share the screen again. So the bin and bike stores are actually something we looked at a lot during this application. Now, unfortunately, because of the layout and the building's actually quite contained, there wasn't space to provide the staircase and a bike store on the ground floor. However, this staircase does go straight down, so it shouldn't be too onerous on the residents to access the cycle store area. And it is completely separate from the takeaway, so the takeaway can't access this area at all. Bin store wise, it is a contained room, and it was considered the best location for the rubbish to be stored there, to be taken out, as otherwise it's again, where else would you put it? But because it is in a contained room, it was considered acceptable in this location, as anywhere else in the building. Thank you.
Thank you, Anna. Thank you very much. Anyone else got any question? Excuse me, to ask of Anna, please? No? No, Mr. A, you can't come back on that. I'm afraid you made your statement. I'm afraid you can't ask any further questions or any questions at all. Sorry about that. Right, committee, we're now on to comments. Comments, please. Councillor Russell, Catherine.
Yes, I was wondering if the flue works would have any noise that could be disruptive to the people in their residences, in their bedrooms, and whether or not, I know it's not visible from most parts of the street, but how that changes the skyline.
Okay, that's a comment that you made. It's not an actual question, Catherine, it's a comment, right? I don't know whether there was a condition. I mean, on public protection, they were requesting conditions requiring a noise assessment. Anna, I'll let you come back in on that very briefly. Have you got anything to say on that one?
Just so the flue position was agreed with the conservation officer and being set back on the roof. It's the best location really for it to have the least impact. And then yes, with public protection have recommended conditions for its control. And also you might have noticed in the plans where it's located inside the building internally is behind the staircase. So it's the best location really to stop it going into the HIMO itself.
Okay, thank you. Councillor McCutcheon, Arthur, I think you've got, yeah. You need to unmute yourself again, Arthur.
Comments, Chairman?
Yeah, that's it. Comments, that's it. Can hear you now.
No, I like that building, that series of buildings on Mercer's Road there is a very fine group of buildings of mixed historical origin. And this particular arts and crafts design from the 1920s is a fine one, and it's one of the ones that we want to bring into being, into use. It's not suitable for offices any longer, because offices don't want to be in the town centre any longer, or don't want any more in the town centre than they'd want before. And so residential is a good use for this. I think this is just about an acceptable use for the HIMOs there, and it's the sort of accommodation which town centre workers would want to be having. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. Anyone else got any comments? And the only sorry, Councillor Markham, Brian, yeah, go
on. Councillor Stone says, you know, the council should try and encourage other usage. Maybe, and yes, I'm sure we would want to see different things, you know, than more takeaways. But the fact is, we also don't want to see empty properties not in use, and we don't want to deprive people of accommodation in the town centre as well. You know, bringing a building back into use is also important as a chain. You know, redesigning the town centre, if you like. And so, as a planning committee, we have to look at what we've got, not what we might like to see, as always. So I recommend we accept the officers' accommodations. There's no other comments.
So, thank you, Brian. Well, that was the only comment that I've got to make is when I saw that the factors are going over the 10% threshold, that does make open my ears and raise my eyebrows on things, because I'm pretty strict in myself on this 10%. But Anna's explained that to where it is. It's done there in residential areas to protect houses in that particular case, not going over 10%. So I understand the explanation, because that don't really apply here. So it's eased my conscience to say that the situation with this one is suitable, and it doesn't contravene my, shall I say, my conscience on sticking to 10%. So I'm quite happy with it in this case, as Anna's explained it. So anyway, if there's no more comments, committee, the recommendation is that we accept the officer's recommendation for approval. Do I have a proposer, please? Councillor McCutcheon, Arthur, yeah, thank you. Second to Councillor Malcolm, Brian, yeah. All those in favour that we accept the officer's recommendation, please?
Eight hands in the air, Chair.
Well, that's unanimous then. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. So that is approved. Before I go on to the next item, is Councillor King joined us?
No, Chair, not yet. No.
Okay, thank you, Tracy. Thank you very much. So that is 10 bears to say is voted through for approval unanimously. We now come on to item 10C, committee, on page 29, which is a change of use from hairdressers to a hot food takeaway, including installation of extraction flue system at 139 Bouverie Road. Nikki, this is your report. Would you like to present it, please?
Thank you, Chair. So just draw members' attention to the addendum. We've had comments from CPRE commenting that consideration should be given to the character of the conservation area and raising concerns about impact on regarding parking. Also, additional third-party comments, just making the point that about 85% of customers to the existing properties used as a hairdressers arrived by car. On average, customers were in the salon between 45 minutes to 2 hours, and it was not uncommon to have 6 to 7 customers at a time. And in addition, there were 5 stylists and 1 beautician employed at the premises. Also referring to comments from CPRE that essentially saying that a heritage statement was submitted and the council's conservation officer was satisfied that there was no negative impact, and also that the highways were consulted and didn't raise an objection. And just making the comment that the post office next door closes at 5:30 and that the street is quiet after that. In addition to those comments, there's an amendment to condition 3, which requires details of storage for refuse and recycling, and it's just to add to agree details of a means of secure enclosure for the refuse storage, which is situated to the front of the property, and I'll point out in a minute. In addition to that, further discussions been carried out with environmental health, and we're recommending an additional condition. This relates to deliveries from the food premises, and restricting that to Monday to Friday, 8 to 11, and then restriction at the weekends. It is open to members, notwithstanding environmental health comments, as we go through the application, it is open to members, if so minded, to add a condition in respect of deliveries to the premises. So that's the details of which we could agree with Chair and Head of Planning. So this is the application site here. You've got the High Street running to the north, and then Bouverie Road runs around to the east. The property is situated in Hardingstone Conservation Area. And just to note that there is a small yard to the rear of the premises, but there's the only access is through the building. There's no external access to that yard. So this is aerial view. To the rear of the site, there's commercial premises, and the parking you can see to the rear there is actually in association with those commercial properties. Otherwise, it's a predominantly residential area surrounding this parade of small three shops. So these are the shops here. The property to the forefront of the picture with the small side extension, that's the application site. The bin storage I was referring to is proposed to go to the front of the property there. Adjacent, you've got a post office and then a beauty salon in that adjacent unit there. So this just gives you a bit more of the surrounding context. There is a small parking area to the front of the property there. As I say, you've got residential opposite and adjacent to this row of shops. Again, that's just a front view of the property. There's no alterations proposed to the front as seen there. And then just a view from the side. So the flue that's proposed would actually be going on this rear roof slope just tucked away at the back there. So these are the floor plans. So the top plan shows property as existing. The bottom as proposed. So essentially, as I say, the front elevation would remain unchanged. You'd have the shop area for the takeaway, and then the kitchen area to the rear there, and refuse storage proposed at the front of the site there. And then the flue would be located at the rear of the building. So again, the elevations, no changes to the front, and then you can see the rear elevation there with the flue, and then just a view from the side of the property. So in respect of the flue, the conservation officers reviewed the application and raises no concerns with the impact of the flue. As I say, it's fairly tucked away and discreet at the back of the property. Environmental health have raised no objection there. Conditions 5 and 6 require further details in respect of noise from plant and odour control. So that would seek to ensure that that's appropriately mitigated to ensure there's no adverse impact on surrounding residential properties. Opening hours for the premises would be restricted and again controlled by condition from 11 AM to 11 PM Monday to Saturday, and 12 noon to 10 PM Sundays, bank and public holidays as required by condition 4. As previously mentioned, there is a condition proposed for deliveries from the site, and consideration could be given to adding another condition about deliveries to the site. So in terms of the proposed use, planning policy does promote a mix of uses within small local shopping facilities such as this, in order to try and maintain the vitality of the surrounding area and also contribute to the sustainable aspect of the area, and offer facilities that people can walk to from within the village and the surrounding area rather than have to drive. There's a number of concerns being raised regarding the parking impacts of the proposal. In terms of number of employees, the proposal indicates about 4 full-time and 3 part-time employees. And as I say, currently the hair salon is understood to have 5 stylists and 1 beautician. So employee numbers are therefore considered comparable in respect of parking impacts and employee parking requirements. In terms of highway authority parking space requirements, again, the proposed use is considered comparable to the existing use as a hairdresser, and there's not considered to be an increase in parking requirements arising from this proposed use that would warrant refusal of the application on that basis in terms of highway authority requirements. Parking requirements associated with the proposed use it's acknowledged they would be of a different nature. They'd be for shorter periods of time in comparison to the existing use as a hairdressers, where the likelihood is that the customers would stay for a longer period of time at the property. There are parking restrictions in the area. You can see that the bollards to the front of the site there. There's double yellow lines on the corner and also double yellow lines along one side of High Street within the vicinity of the site for quite a length of High Street that would assist in preventing any inappropriate parking. It's also of note that the Highway Authority have raised no objection to the proposal. And also that the National Planning Policy Framework, paragraph 109, advises that development should only be prevented or refused on highway grounds if there would be an unacceptable impact on highway safety or the residual cumulative impact on the road network would be severe. Officer opinion in this case is that it could not be demonstrated that the impacts are severe, and that subject to the proposed conditions, the proposal is acceptable and therefore recommended for approval. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Nikki. Well, we have 5 speakers on this application. I'll call them in as I've got them listed. First of all, Gail Duncan, please. Gail, I can see you. If you just unmute yourself and introduce yourself. And good evening. Introduce yourself and in what capacity you speak, Gail, and you have 3 minutes.
My name's Gail Duncan. I live directly opposite the proposed takeaway.
Okay, madam. Thank you. You have 3 minutes. Thank you.
Thank you. All planning committee members should have received my email with greater details of my objections to this application, including photographic evidence of the frequent parking issues. In brief, my objections are inadequate parking and highway safety, a probable increase in footfall and traffic, and the area could potentially become a gathering place. Stagecoach may withdraw the bus service from the village because of parking and traffic issues. There is no rear access to the parking, which may impact to the property, which may impact on delivery being made. Despite the extraction units, there will still be smells in a predominantly residential area. There are already sufficient takeaways within a 3-mile radius of Hardingstone, 26 in total. Already there's a large rat problem in the garage complex behind the site, and the positioning of the refuse bins could exacerbate this. The 1975 planning application decision is still relevant given the increasing size of the village. Also, this decision was made before my house opposite was built in 1989. The Obesity and Health and Wellbeing paper of March 2020 has been written to support the creation of planning policy within the borough to tackle the high levels of obesity in relation to fast food takeaways. Is the planning department following this guidance? And if so, why has another takeaway been approved on St Leonard's Road? And why is this application being allowed to progress? The next points relate to the planning report. 8.1, the NLP states that planning permission will not be approved if it will A, lead to unacceptable traffic problems, and B, it will adversely affect the amenity of neighbouring properties. 8.2 states that the property has been unoccupied for at least 12 months. No, it's even been trading today. There are 2 other hairdressers in the village, not 3. There are 2 hairdressers working in the salon, one who lives in the village and walks to work. 8.9 and 10, the planned opening hours are unacceptable in the mainly residential area. 8.12, it is an assumption that people will walk to the takeaway. They already drive to the cash point. 8.13, the local
30 seconds remaining.
Think there won't be an issue with traffic or parking, but they don't live here. My brick wall has been demolished twice by buses driving on the pavement. In conclusion, I hope you will support my objections and refuse this application.
Thank you, Gail. If you just stay with us in case the committee's got any questions to ask of you, please. Committee, do you have any questions to ask of Gail, please? I don't see anybody on my screen. No?
It's indicating, Chair.
Nobody. Okay, thank you, Gail. Thank you very much. And I call upon Councillor Perry Thomas, please. I can see you, Mr. Thomas. If you just identify yourself and in what capacity you speak. Good evening. You need to unmute yourself, Mr. Thomas. You need to unmute yourself. Can't hear you. That's it.
There we are. Was that working? Yeah,
Yeah.
I was doing the one by my face, but it didn't work.
Well, if you do,
Right.
in what capacity?
Yes, I'm the chairman of Hardingstone Parish Council.
Okay.
And Hardingstone Parish Council is opposing this development in the interests of the residents in the immediate vicinity, and also those who need to drive along the High Street and the Bouverie Road. I mean, to suggest that the parking facilities are adequate it beggars belief, really. Parking is a severe issue in our narrow village streets. It is so difficult for buses to get through the High Street that Stagecoach have in the past threatened to cut out our bus service. Now, apart from the residents who have no off-street parking, the High Street is used by visitors to the village hall, parish room, Scouts and Guides hut, the local garage, the post office, and the Sun Public House, which has no car park. The post office and cash point in Bouverie Road, next door to the proposed takeaway, are very popular, not only with residents, but with customers from a wide surrounding area. There's a bay which takes 5 cars outside the shops. The other customers for the post office park up Bouverie Road, often up to and around the bend, some 100 yards away. And you could see the bend on the plan that Nikki showed. The road bends right round and people park all the way up there. The post office van has great difficulty getting near the post office to deliver and collect mail. This impacts on highway safety, as anyone who's experienced the situation could plainly see. The road is effectively rendered a single carriageway, with vehicles meeting head on at the bend. The suggestion that the double yellow lines mitigate parking problems is wishful thinking, as they are frequently ignored. The problem obviously is exacerbated at the moment by the COVID crisis and Christmas, but it's very similar in magnitude all the year round in normal times. As the proposed opening hours of the takeaway overlap with the post office, the congestion will be greatly increased during the daytime. It seems that what can and cannot be done in and near conservation areas is rather arbitrary, quite honestly. The parish council is dubious that the proposed extraction system would eliminate cooking smells. On observing other takeaways in the town,
30 seconds remaining.
If burgers and chips, etc. are served, there's always a percentage of customers who consider it acceptable to drop litter and half-eaten food, no matter how many bins are provided. This is a residential area with narrow village streets and furthermore a conservation area, and it's quite an inappropriate position for such premises. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Thomas. If just make yourself available in case the committee's got any questions to ask of you. Committee, any questions to ask of Councillor Thomas?
Nobody's indicating, Chair.
Thank you, Tracy. Thank you, Councillor Thomas. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And I'll call upon Councillor Jonathan Nunn, please. Councillor Nunn, good evening to you.
Evening. Thank you, Chairman, and good evening, everybody. Jonathan Nunn, Ward Councillor for Northampton Borough Council for Nen Valley. And actually, my comments will be echoing those excellent comments made by Councillor Thomas and Mrs. Duncan. So I'll be as brief as I can, really. I would welcome amenity, of course, provided by facilities within the village. There's little doubt about that. My thought is that we just haven't quite got this right yet, and I've been contacted by so many local residents with their concerns, the bigger part of which is around the traffic issues. I think there will be significant difference between a very small hairdressers where just 2 or 3 customers per hour turnover throughout the day, rather than the more intense activity that you see at a takeaway venue. And there is a huge bottleneck. Councillors will see on the plan at the back of the report that the road narrows tremendously between Bouverie Road and the High Street. And the bottleneck problems there are serious. Serious parking exists, parking problems exist all the way along the High Street. If you attend a parish council meeting, as I do occasionally prior to lockdown, it is almost impossible to park along there, visitors to the pub and so on. That's a very dangerous situation. which, as I think Mrs. Duncan already pointed out, Stagecoach, the bus operator, have threatened to withdraw their services on many occasions. And that is a serious issue for a semi-rural community when the risk of their bus is not because of lack of use, but in actual fact because buses cannot get through. I note the highways report. I note that it seems rushed, it was late, and actually it has no detail. And so I honestly think there is more highways work to be looked here to find a solution. It is not possible to say that in 1975 the traffic problems were too significant for this council to allow a takeaway to be placed there, but that problem has eased, because it has not. These villages were not built through times of car ownership, so the problems have become worse and worse. And I think Mrs. Duncan's photos evidence that actually traffic restrictions mean nothing. It is quite clear resources will never allow for traffic enforcement in villages such as this, and photographs of cars parked on pavements, completely blocking the pavements, let alone the double yellow lines, are not one-offs, but a frequent daily occurrence. As a consequence, I would love to see facilities for the people of Hardingstone and surrounding areas, and I have a feeling they'd be well used. We're not quite there yet. I would urge the committee consider that at this stage the application be refused. However, a more constructive approach may be to defer to highways for a proper site visit and consideration of the real issues that take place up there. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Nunn. Thank you very much. Committee, does anyone have any questions of Councillor Nunn, please?
Nobody's indicating, Chair.
Thank you very much, Stacey. Thank you, Councillor Nunn. Thank you very much for that. And I've called upon Mr. Jabir Mir. I hope I've got the pronunciation right. Forgive me if I haven't. Mr. Mir, I can see you. Thank you. If you'd like to introduce yourself and in what capacity you speak, please. Good evening. You have 3 minutes then.
Good evening. My name is Jabir Mir. I'm a solicitor representing the applicant in this matter, and I speak on behalf of the applicant.
Okay, thank you. You have 3 minutes. Thank you.
Right. Just to give us a little bit of sort of context to the application, there seems to be a misunderstanding that this is going to be some sort of fast food takeaway, which is going to create litter, and people are going to eat the food on the way home, or etc. So the concept by the client is an Indian food takeaway. So it's the type of food you need to take home to be able to eat it. It's not the sort of food you can eat on the way home. Obviously, there is some sorts of food you could, but that's not the idea. The operator is aiming at the local market. It's a small local business aimed at the local people, and the idea would be that they'd walk or come and collect it. Although some objections have been made against the highways report, the highways report makes it clear that there is restrictions there, including the yellow lines and bollards. So what needs to be done in a statutory sense has been done. The current owner of the building, he's had this property on the market for 2 years. The business isn't great. There's 2 other hairdressers in the village which are operating. Right, sorry, I think something's gone wrong there.
Got you back.
There are 2 other hairdressers operating within the village. And so the demand's not there. And what the current owner has provided, and we've put that in as well, is evidence of the previous marketing activity. The property's been marketed for over 2 years as a hairdresser, as an ongoing business, and it's still marketed, and it hasn't been sold. We did make a pre-planning application on behalf of the applicant, this firm did, and we had a positive response. The applicant is willing and is happy to restrict opening hours from 5 p.m. onwards, if that makes a difference, because it's not a daytime fish and chips or fast food takeaway. And the target audience is those within the village. The parade needs to survive. It's a local centre, and a planning policy requires a mix. And for that mix to be there, you do need to have different businesses. So each business will complement each other. And there's sufficient parking outside once the post office has closed. So taking all that into account, the litter, the smell problem with
30 seconds remaining.
Thank you. The possible issue with odours and noise, conditions being agreed, so there'll be double ventilation, it will all be, so there's no smell or noise, and the test will be provided as a condition of the planning application. So the applicant's gone and worked with the council from pre-planning and within the application to amend the application as they've gone on. and there is refuge space to the rear of the property if required, and the outside space is to be used on bin collection days.
That's 3 minutes, Chair.
Thank you, Tracy. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'll throw it open to the committee in a moment to ask questions of you. The question I've just got is, what your statement just said. Correct me if I'm wrong. Did I get the impression from what you've just said that the applicant is willing to open the business from 5 o'clock at night as opposed to 11 o'clock in the morning?
Indeed, 5 p.m. in the evening. Yeah.
Oh, that's interesting. That.
It's not a fast food takeaway. It will only.
No,
be
I understand that. It's you come and get it and you take it away. But
yeah,
so the applicant is prepared, and just for my clarity of mind, is prepared to open the hours from 5 in the evening, both at all the times and even Sunday, and not on the hours that we've got down in the report. He's prepared to amend that.
That's agreed. Prepared to amend that. I've got.
Thank you. Thank you very.
And is confirming that. So.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Committee, sorry. Anybody got any questions to ask of Mr. Mayor, please? Councillor Russell, Catherine, yeah.
Hello, thank you very much. Does this mean, Mr. Mayor, that the applicant and possibly the owner or the applicant or whoever's working there will also be providing a delivery service to the residents in the village? And if so, where will their car be parked?
Mr. Mayor?
Yeah, so I've spoken to the applicant. He's sitting beside me as well. We was talking about this as the conversations were going on. So delivery service would be provided, but the preference would be people collect. And you may have seen, and most takeaways offer a discount to people who come and collect their food. And obviously, if there was a delivery vehicle, it'd be the same vehicle he'll travel to in work, and it'd be parked in front of the shop most likely, or on the high street.
Thank you. Anyone else got any questions to ask of Mr. Mayor? Please.
Nobody appears to be indicating, Chair.
Thank you for that, Mr. Mayor. And I'll call upon Mr. Ali A, please. I hope I've got the pronunciation right. Still can't hear you, Mr. A. Yes, okay.
Good.
Thank you, Mr. A. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair, and good evening to everybody. Just shortly, firstly, I have respect to planning officer for the recommendation, approval, comment, and the report. And the pre-advised application, the planning and the council is supporting. We have got a letter, is the 3rd of September. And everybody first the worried for the traffic for parking, but this is the village and the residential area. Generally, my concern is the working people, and the other two shop, the two business active, the post office and the supermarket traffic, the public circulation is very high than the takeaway. And the takeaway will be open at 5 o'clock. No, the all cross world, in the big problem is coronavirus. I'm sure not all the local area, this village is near the takeaway shop. No 1, 2, 3, because it's the conditions are changing. No restaurant, no, the people needed some hot food, takeaway is there. But the local people is objection. I don't understand yet. Maybe it's not true, no reality. And for flu, we are using if the condition, we have to submit application and environment health if the approved is okay. No, the last technology is no noise, no smell, is minimum. Yeah, there are using the last, for example, the Environment Agency details is exhaust kitchen system. It's very nice. And yeah, just this, the short is that one. I have to respect everybody the comment, but maybe is this takeaway first is necessary for this village and for the residential area because condition very bad. And thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. A. Thank you. Committee, does anybody have any questions to ask of Mr. A, please?
Nobody's indicating, Chair.
Thank you, Tracy. Thank you, Mr. A. Nikki, before I throw it open to the questions to the committee to ask of you, anything you want to come back on what's been said by the speakers, please?
Thank you, Chair. No, I just guess really to reiterate that the proposal would assist in retaining that unit in some form of use rather than it being vacant. Also, in terms of delivery service, that would go some way towards reducing the extent of traffic that would visit the site, as also would the amendment to the opening hours as just proposed by the applicant. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Nikki. Committee, questions to Nikki. Anyone got any questions to Nikki, please? Councillor Russell, Catherine, yeah.
Thank you. Nikki, in the images that you've shown us of this property, there's some bushes just in front of the main building, and you indicated that that's where the bin stalls would be. Are those bushes going to be removed, or is there going to be a way to put the bins behind the bushes so that they would be hidden from the street view?
Nikki?
Through you, Chair, my understanding is that the bushes would probably be removed. Hence, in the addendum, I referred to agreeing some sort of screening for those refuse. So if it was that the bushes could be retained as part of that screening, then we could look at that. But what we would try and avoid is having exposed bins in that prominent location at the front of the property. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Nikki. Anyone else got any questions? Yes, Councillor Botwood. Alan, yeah.
Thank you, Chair. Nikki, I know Councillor Larratt's comments, and I'm also looking at the hours of opening, albeit that the agent for the client is saying that they can be changed to open at 5 p.m. But I think in this instance, we might need to look at putting a condition in about when they can accept deliveries.
I agree.
You don't want to deliver it at 10:30 at night.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, that's my thought.
Yeah, I was going to come on to that in comments, Alan, but thank you very much. Okay. Nikki, it's a question to you from Councillor Botwood.
Yeah, I mean that is certainly a reasonable question to impose, and it would meet the requirements in respect to the conditions test. So we could, as I say, we could look at that and agree the specific details of that in consultation with the chair and head of planning to agree appropriate time so that there isn't an adverse impact on amenity. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you.
Councillor Lane, Jamie, yes.
Yeah, I'm just wondering how accurate the report is now. Now the applicant is saying basically he's going to half his hours by being at 5 p.m. rather than 11 a.m. How accurate? Because he's talking about the amount of employment it's going to bring to the area. And we're also waiting, as Councillor Lynn said, about the highways report. I'm just wondering whether it would be a better idea to defer this to a later date.
Nikki?
Chair,
Nikki?
Perhaps if I can come in here.
Yeah, all right.
It's as committee members will know, it's not unusual to make minor changes to conditions. However, we wouldn't normally accept changes that would mean changes to the fabric, for example, or changes to the use. So I think if committee would be minded to support this with the changes to the hours of operation and possibly a condition about the hours of deliveries to the premises, I think that would still be acceptable. That wouldn't preclude you making a decision on the application tonight. And if the applicant then got permission and operated and found that those hours weren't suitable, they would then need to come back and make an application to vary those. So there would still be that element of control on those. Thank you.
Okay, Jamie. Okay.
Yeah, it's just a big, isn't it, to go from 12 hours a day down to 6 hours a day. I just wondered whether the applicant wanted some more time to resubmit the report, but I'm happy with that.
I think as long as they're looking at reducing the hours, Chair, it would be unreasonable to consider longer hours because, of course, the public wouldn't have had the chance to consider the impact of those.
Well, I was going to come on to it in my comments, under comments about my own particular views. But we're still asking questions of Nikki at the minute. Anybody else got any questions to ask of Nikki?
Nobody appears to be indicating, Chair.
Thank you for that, Tracy. So now we are down to comments, and I'd just like to say that I've heard the speakers and I respect what they've said all the way through. The one thing that did concern me a little bit, and I'll come back to what Councillor Botwood said, deliveries coming into the village, and I know this area quite well. I would like to see the deliveries being limited to a particular timescale. I wouldn't want to see deliveries coming in through this quiet residential village at 10:30 or even just before 10 o'clock at night, big delivery wagons. And I would like to condition that, and probably in conjunction with you, Peter, to say what a suitable time would be. But I wouldn't want it going on to them late hours or having the chance. I would like, and I would support what Councillor Botwood said in reference to what Councillor Larratt made in his written objections. On top of that, I'd like to pick up on what Mr. Mears has said, and I'm quite encouraged by that, because I was wondering about the opening hours from 11 and 12 o'clock on a Sunday. I would certainly be encouraged by the fact of opening at 5 o'clock at night. And he's explained the situation that it's not really something what you can eat just outside and run the risk of litter. It's a takeaway, you get it and you move on. So I'm encouraged by that, and I would be in supportive that we should perhaps take that, the opening hours to be from 5 o'clock at night. It is a condition that I would perhaps like to see put in or amended. And also, with regards to the parking, I've heard what Mrs. Duncan said, Councillor Thomas and Councillor Nunn. Yeah, it is. It is a notorious area. But when you're going down the path of saying, well, we'll reject it or refuse it on those grounds, and then you read the highways report, I accept what Councillor Nunn said. Is it accurate? It needs more. It needs perhaps a little bit more reference to it. But I'm satisfied that the amount of people coming in, out, off the way won't necessarily exacerbate the parking to the extent that Mrs. Duncan, Councillor Thomas and Councillor Nunn think. So I'm minded to support the application, provided I can get these amendments to the delivery times and the opening hours. I'm sorry, I took a bit more of your time. Councillor Mark and Brian, you've got your hand up. Go on.
Yeah, could I say, first of all, and I didn't know that he was speaking. I've known Mr. Mears for some time, but he's never spoken to me about this. In fact, I've not spoken to him for some time, but I thought I should declare that as a solicitor. He's not spoken to me about this application. I think that the proposed change, if we have an amendment on the opening hours, is important, not just because it will deal with some of those concerns about traffic. The concern, and I accept a delivery time, but actually no food delivery is going to deliver at 10 o'clock at night, really. I mean, we have a takeaway at the top of our street, and that, you know, they deliver around about lunchtime, but you know, we'll have that condition. But I think, but what's important about the condition, of course, I hope that this particular fast food use, selling food which is not a chip shop, if you like, and people can take their meals away, collect them or have them delivered, is successful. But of course, when we give planning consent, fast food is fast food, and 5 years down the road, it could be different. So I do think it is very important, therefore, that as part of the planning consent, that we restrict the opening hours, because a chip shop would want, if it became that in 5 years' time, would want different opening hours. So I think, and I'd support the application. As far as Councillor Nunn and all the comments about the traffic, to me, Chair, seem to refer to the current situation, and it is bad. I know in the high street, but the pub and everything else are caught in that traffic. This change of use is not going to add very much to it, I can see.
Thank you. Anyone else got any comments to make? Councillor Lane, Jamie? Yeah. I'll see you after. Yeah.
I do have concerns about just the position of it, really, because to me, fast food equals fast cars, and people will come and collect their food quite quickly. And they'll be parking on the corners of Bouverie Road, at the junctions, and probably opposite as well. And I can just see a lot of illegal parking as a result of it. Yeah. We approved some years ago, and Councillor Russell will know what I'm talking about, in Road, opposite the Romany pub, where I voted against it, but other people voted for that shop and the apartments above it. And that shop is opening now. And it won't be long until we see people parked on that mini roundabout, because people do not abide by the laws. Sorry.
Well, we have to work with them, Jamie. That's what we've got. Councillor Goldwyn, Matt, did I see you with your hand up?
Yeah, thanks, Brian. I accept I think we've made a bit of progress on this, but I'm still reluctant to support it. Going back to what the gentleman, Mr. Thomas, said from the parish council, I think, you know, we've got to listen to parishes. I'm a parish council member myself, and parishes are obviously embedded and know the communities really well. I think both the two members of the public spoke very well on, you know, what the impacts may be on the community. And as Councillor Nunn said, he still thinks there's a bit of a way to go. And I know we've made a bit of progress, but my view is I think I'd have preferred that we deferred this, as Councillor Lane suggested, and just flashed out, you know, the sort of points of detail around this. So, but overall, I accept some progress has been made, but I'm still undecided as to whether I can support it. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Goldwyn. Councillor McCutcheon, Arthur, yeah.
Oh.
Okay, can hear you, Arthur, yeah.
Okay, good. The business about what time it opens at, I think that needs firming up a great deal, because it sounded to me as though that was being made a bit on the hoof, that offer of 5 o'clock evening opening. And that is a radical change in hours, and that needs firming up. The appearance of that particular corner, if it's going to be a bin store, then it's got to be properly done. I noticed that there's close board fencing on one side of it. That might be one sort of way of dealing with it, but it's got to be a very solid piece of proper bin store hiding, as it were, in order to make proper deliveries, because there is no collection facility, I notice, at the back. So that's got to be carefully taken care of. Apart from that, it's by and large, it's a good application.
Thank you. Has anyone else got any comments to make before I go to the proposal?
Nobody appears to be indicating, Chair.
Thank you very much, Tracy. Well, correct me if I'm wrong here. Teresa and Peter, you might need to come in, but I would like to support this, but with those alterations that we've heard tonight, particularly with the opening hours. I'd like to have that condition from 5 until 11 and 5 till 10 on Sundays. I would also like to consider the condition of the delivery times of vehicles coming in, not any deliveries going out, vehicles coming in. Now, guide me, please, before I go to the vote. What can we do about that in legal terms and proper planning matters? That's what I'd like to be proposing, that's what we put in. Subject to our agreement, yours, Peter, and mine, about what the delivery times should be coming in through the village, because I don't want them coming in any time at night. We've got to put a kind of a restriction hour on it.
So, Chair, you're proposing that the opening hours be 5 till 11
on Monday to Saturdays,
Monday
yeah,
to Saturday, and 5 till 10 on Sundays.
Yes, yes.
That you be given delegated authority in consultation with the Director of Planning to agree the delivery hours. Is that correct?
That's what yes, that's what I'm putting forward. Councillor Markham's got his hand up for something. Brian, yeah, what? I can't hear you, Brian.
The important thing is not only those the opening hours and delivery hours to the premises, but also don't forget the addendum tonight. There were also proposed amendments to what the original report, and I think that one of those covers screening for the bins and so on. And so there are still things we need to, if we're agreeing it, we need to make sure that those proposed amendments to the report and to the provisions are also included, because they're just almost as important. The bin storm and so on are also important. And I'd like to propose we accept the officer's recommendation with all those bits.
On that particular thing, Nikki, Peter, what do you say?
Nikki, could you just remind me what the addendum says about the screening of the bins, please?
Sorry to jump in here, Peter. Nikki is no longer in the meeting.
Okay.
All right.
Any of my colleagues have the addendum to hand, please? It's just I can't open my copy at the moment. Hannah?
Just opening it.
Thank you.
The addendum, yes?
Yes.
Brilliant. Just opening.
Thank you, Hannah. Is that all that's on there?
No, there's another page.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, sure.
Right. Great. Thank you very much, Hannah. Thank you, members. What I wanted to do there is just make sure that the comments relating to the bin store weren't going to introduce anything new that the residents nearby might not have anticipated. On the basis of the proposed condition there, I don't think that's the case. I think that condition gives a reasonable expectation that there is going to be some screening. So on that basis, if the recommendation is to accept the bin storage condition you've just seen, would amend condition 4 to be opening hours of 5 p.m. to 11 p.m. Monday to Saturdays and 5 p.m. to 10 p.m. Sundays for bank holidays.
Yeah, thank you.
And seeking delegation for the chair of planning and myself to agree a condition in relation to the deliveries to the takeaway, then I don't think those are significant changes. And I think if committee were minded to approve so, then I think they could do that.
Well, I'd like to put that forward as a proposal based on what you've just summed up there, Peter, with the delivery times, the opening times, and the storage, the fence time, the addendum, what you referred to. That's what I'd like to propose. Yeah.
Okay.
Do I have a seconder for that?
Yeah.
Councillor Markham, Brian. Yeah, thank you. So based on that, that's as long as committee understand what we're actually voting on, that's the proposition. All those in favour that we accept the officer's recommendation with those alterations and amendments, please? Do we all have them?
5 hands in the air, Chair.
Thank you. That's for it, as described with the amendments. Against?
Three hands in the air, Chair.
So that's 5 for and 3 against with the amendment that's been stipulated. Yeah? Yeah. Okay, so it's approved on that basis with those amendments and alterations. Thank you very much. Thank you for everybody for that. That was a good, strong and a healthy debate. Thank you. So that's approved on that basis of 5 for and 3 against with the amendments that we've just debated. Right, we now come on to item 10D, which is on page 39. That is a change of use from a dwelling house to a house in multiple occupation for 7 occupants at 70 Booth Meadow Court. Katrina, this is your report. Would you like to present it, please? Welcome to your first debut. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. First, I'd just like to draw your attention to an additional comment received from Councillor Duffy, just flagging up the impacts of COVID-19 and the responsibility of landlords in this respect. Although this isn't actually a planning consideration, but I will go through the provision of bathrooms when we have a look at the plans. So it's this end of terrace dwelling here, which is in a residential area. You see that here. The Billingbrook Road is just over here to the east, and there is a bus stop there. There are several footpath links around and across, and also heading south from this property. This is the property in question. So it's a larger 3-storey dwelling at the moment with a rear garden here that has a separate access to the rear. So that is the property in question from the front. And this is a view from the front hallway to the rear, the lounge, and the double doors opening onto the rear garden. And these are existing bedrooms in the property. This is the existing layout. So as you can see, there's a kitchen and a lounge on the ground floor and a toilet by the front door, 3 bedrooms to the first floor and a bathroom, and 3 further bedrooms on the second floor with a bathroom. The proposed plans, so these cover a large shared kitchen and lounge, each with double cookers and 2 sinks, a bedroom to the front and a toilet on the ground floor. On the first floor, we have 2 bedrooms and a communal shower room with toilet and hand basin, another bedroom that has its own ensuite bathroom, and on the second floor we have 3 bedrooms, 2 of which would share this communal shower room, and 1 large room that has its own ensuite. The property is located within, if I just go back to the plan, it's located in close to the Thorpelands local centre, which is just to the north here, and with bus routes on Billingbrook Road. The applicant did submit a parking beat survey, although highways are not accepting these at the moment during the pandemic, and highways have no comments to make. Public protection also do not object, and private sector housing are satisfied following amendments with the layout of the proposal. All the room sizes meet our policy requirements. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Katrina. Committee, we've got no speakers on this, so it's any questions directly to Katrina. Anyone got any questions to ask of Katrina, please?
Nobody's indicating, Chair.
Thank you very much, Tracy. Well, then it goes on to comments committee. Any comments? Councillor Botwood, Alan.
Thank you, Chair. Just a little concern, which I think a lot of us have had over the last few months in particular, Chair. the amenities are not particularly good. I know we're looking to say that a bedroom, everybody should have an ensuite. But if you look at the ground floor, they've got a toilet, but no shower or bath. So they've got to go up to the second or third floor, in which case, you know, it's quite a trek. And there'd be at least 3 householders on each and any floor, possibly, using 1 bathroom. Only 2 of the bedrooms have the ensuite. So I know there may not be material grounds to object, and this is what we have quite a lot with these, but it certainly doesn't meet a better standard that we were trying to achieve where we could.
Thank you, Alan. Thank you. Anyone else got any comments, please?
Nobody appears to be. Oh, Councillor Russell's indicated.
Councillor Russell is. Okay. Catherine, yeah.
Thank you. We didn't get a report on whether there's any HMOs in the vicinity.
We did. It's on 7.4.
Oh, sorry, I didn't. I was expecting. Yeah.
Page 42.
Yeah.
Yeah. Sorry. Apologies. I didn't flag that up. It was 2.2%. There aren't any HMOs in the 50-metre radius for this property.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Catherine. Anyone else got any comments? Councillor Lane, Jamie.
I'm happy to propose we accept the officer's recommendation for approval.
Thank you. Do I have a seconder for that? Councillor Botwood, Alan, yeah, seconder. And Sam as well. All those in favour that we accept the officer's recommendation for approval on this?
Seven hands in the air, Chair.
Thank you
8
very
hands,
much.
sorry. 8 hands now.
So that's unanimous then. Thank you very much. Right, we now come on. It's time for me to bid you good night, Alan, Councillor Botwood, because we're
Thank
now
you very much, Chair. Merry Christmas and Happy New Year.
Merry Christmas and Happy New Year to you. Thank you
Thank you
for your participation. Right, committee, we're on item 12A, page 47, which is a Northampton Partnership Homes application for a single-storey rear extension together with internal alterations at 41 Hardy Drive. Anna, this is your report. Would you like to present it, please?
Thank you, Chair. So just one addendum, last minute change. It's noticed that part 2.1 of the description of the proposal, it mentions it's a single-storey flat roof rear and side extension. This is an error. The proposal is for a pitched roof rear extension only, as in the description. So the application site is located here. If I just show you an aerial view, so it's an end terrace property here. So the proposed extension would come off this gable end into the garden. This is looking at the rear of the property. And then just looking the other way, so we're now standing at that gable end. So you can see there's not many neighbouring properties close by. This is the existing house. This is the gable end we saw. And this is the proposal. So it's a single-storey extension, which is formed of 2 parts. So this section here would match the existing appearance we saw in the picture. And then there'd be a larger projection, which would be this smaller gable end here. It's considered the proposal would be acceptable in design terms and would not have an unacceptable impact on neighbouring amenity, and it's therefore recommended for approval. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Anna. Well, we have one speaker. Jonathan, good evening. Good evening to you. Now,
good evening, Chair.
Speaking against this, Jonathan, so if you're prepared, and I know you've been waiting on, good evening, thanks for your patience in that respect. Okay. If there's any questions either to Anna or to yourself, if you're quite happy to sit there and see if there's any questions, unless you really want to speak. Do you want to speak?
No, it's again, this is another project, obviously, at Northampton Partnership Homes. I work in the Disabled Adaptions team, and something that we've been striving to do for the last couple of years is to provide accommodation for children with disabilities and families to be able to all sort of live together under one roof, and something we're very proud to do. And this is just another one of those projects.
All right, thank you for that, Jonathan. Right, committee. Jonathan's prepared to sit there and take any questions you may wish to ask.
No questions.
And also any questions to Anna. So has anybody got any questions to either Anna or to Jonathan, please?
Nobody appears to be indicating, Chair.
Thank you very much. Well, then we go on to comment committee. Comments, Councillor Markham, Brian.
Well, I'd like to say we accept the recommendation. A nice Christmas present for somebody certainly next year. Sadly, maybe not ready for the end of this week, but yeah, another great example of the work that NPH do.
Do I take that as a proposition that we accept the officer's recommendation?
Yes, accept the officer's recommendation.
Do I have a seconder? Councillor Russell, seconding. Catherine, yeah, okay. All those in favour to accept the officer's recommendations for approval on this?
Seven hands in the air, Chair.
Anyone against? Is anybody left? Anyone against? No. So there's 7 of us left, is there? Of course, Councillor Botwood's gone. That's how remiss of me. Seeing our dimension. Well, that committee comes to the end of this particular planning agenda. Can I just say to you all before you go, thank you, Jonathan, for being patient, by the way, for that. Thank you very much. It's been a very difficult year. We've had to do things rather differently. I'd like to thank all of you for how you've contributed to the planning agendas and committee meetings that we've had over the year. Thank you very, very much. You've debated it robustly, fairly constructively, and it's been very pleasing to chair that sort of approach from you. I want to wish you all a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. And above all else, I want you to all stay safe, stay well, and let's see everybody in place in the new year. And they say, well, let's get rid of this year, but I'm not too sure I want to welcome next year yet, but there again. But all the best to everybody, all the officers, all the members. Sincerely, thank you very, very much. Wish you all the best for the festive season. Thank you.
You too, Brian.
Bye-bye.
Thank you very much.
Everybody.
Happy Christmas, everyone.
Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas to everybody. Thank you.
Merry Christmas.